Hi, everyone. Obviously, I am Ben. I head up the team here at Net Solutions, and I'm joined with Kurt, who I'll introduce in just a moment. We are a agency that specializes in three key areas: e-commerce, digital transformation, and product development. And we've got a bit of notoriety through 2024 for the work that we've completed in conversion rate optimization. So today we're going to give some insight as to how we did it this year, or certainly within 2024, and how we're doing it this year. The entire conversation, as you can see, is driving e-commerce growth revenue through CRO, turning customer behavior into growth. And as I mentioned, I'm joined here with Kurt. Kurt, do you want to do a quick introduction, and then I will take it from there?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Kurt Sinclair, Head of Data and Experimentation at Net Solutions. I have been in CRO for the last decade across many scopes, global agencies, boutique agencies, in-house, consulting with enterprises, etc. So a lot of experience in the space, seen good and bad. Here to show you some of what good looks like and how you can sort of bring this into your business.
Thanks, Kurt. Okay, so the first thing that I want to highlight here is something that we actually shared on stage in November, and that is that 99% of organizations lack key insights to customer behavior. And so what do we mean by that? We mean that people are concentrating solely on average order value rather than average revenue per user. And so we're going to explain to you why that's important in a moment, but I can turn this around firstly by asking a question. There's no need to answer it. You can if you want to in the chat. But a question for yourself would be, do you know the revenue or the conversion difference between a product display page that has 5 images in comparison to a product display page with 10? Right? It's these kind of questions that we need to ask. And understanding at a really granular level, going down to average revenue per user, allows you to not just understand how to change the site and change the experience around the highest value customer, but it also allows you to identify where spend should be going, right? I realize that Performance Max can make things a little bit tricky there, but certainly areas that you maybe want to do a manual campaign because you can see very specifically areas, channels that you need to be directing traffic to. And so as a high level, do you want high conversions, 100 conversions at a dollar or a pound? Or do you want to have 10 conversions at $10,000 or 10,000 pounds? And this is what we're concentrating on here. And this is at a very high level how we've managed to have so much success over the course of 2024. And that success, if anyone here is familiar with it, is that over the year, we had a 100% success rate. Thanks for bringing that up on screen there. Anyone who can, please complete this poll. We'd be really interested to capture some of this information. Maybe a bit of returning favor if you could do that for us. That would be great. Okay, so I'm going to pass the floor now over to Kurt. Kurt's going to take you through all of the slides, and at any time that you want to add these questions, please just pop them into the chat.
Okay, so thanks, Ben. What we're looking at now is, I think a lot of people are sort of confused about what CRO is and how to get the most value out of it. So we're just going through it and showing you 3 core areas, right? Choosing your core metrics, how you discuss value. We're a CRO agency. All we do all day is discuss conversion rate up, AOV down, and vice versa. And having to try and communicate value across teams and organizations and C-suites and everybody else. This is how we sort of go about getting everything done. Establishing data structures will cover really high level and forming insights and strategy. So I say high level, but this is going to be behind the scenes, looking at some of the views that we use in order to move the dial for our clients. So you will learn something. Doesn't matter how long you've been in e-commerce, you will learn something today, right? So we've done this enough times now to know that this is new for a lot of people. So let's give you some key takeaways of what we're going to go through. So first of all, core metrics shape how quickly you can understand and act. Investing in data structures today improves decisions tomorrow. That sounds very cliche, but you'll see why that matters. Revenue grows when functions chase the same goal, right? So evidenced opportunities, and that ties back to us all understanding value and being able to understand what's going on with our core metrics. And lastly, free analytics tools, risk multi-million operations. So GA, coughing slightly, presents a lot of risk to retailers. And certainly if you're doing anything more than sort of 10 million a year online, you really need to be considering paid tools, because GA is not doing you a lot of favors. But I'll show you some of the pitfalls that we sort of see and how you can address them. So let's jump forward. So choosing core metrics, right? The big one, session conversion rate masks your true performance. Now, this is everybody's favorite metric, and everybody says to me, look, doesn't matter. Like, you're either an AOV shop or you're a conversion rate shop. Very rarely are people in both camps, and we advocate doing just that. And I'll show you the issue with session rates, session conversion rates. So the main thing we want to establish is what's going on with performance, right? So session rates mix buying intent with research time, right? So it's a reflection of how many people want to buy and how many sessions did they take to do that. We can't always control the second part, so it makes it difficult, right? So purchasers take multiple visits to decide. Some products need more research, right? Market forces will often beat whatever you can do, right? So skipping through, to be effective, we need metrics that can separate concerns, right? So it's really hard to distinguish what's going on if we're saying, right, people are taking more sessions to browse. Is that positive or negative, right? It could be more research, like waiting for payday or whatever it is. It's not always necessarily a bad thing. So what we suggest, as Ben mentioned, is average revenue per user, right? So it's a comprehensive measure of volume and value. Now, most people don't realize that there are two ways to work this out, right? So everyone looks at it and says, from an e-commerce perspective, look, that's a SaaS metric, total revenues divided by total users. But what they don't realize, and most people don't realize, is that average revenue per user can also be calculated by working out your user conversion rate times your average order value, right? So for separation of concerns, this is great. Root cause analysis. We get one number that goes up or down, and then we can look at user conversion rate or AOV to make sense of why that's going up or down. So this is like value. For conversations about value, this is the biggest game changer for most people. So let's skip through, Ben. All right, so it distills complex user behavior into an actionable number, easier to identify which lever. Now, naturally, we'll say $5 per user is a lot more intuitive than 2.3% conversion at $217 AOV, right? It's just not a natural conversation. So as an example, if we pop the next one, Ben, right, saying 2.7% conversion at $180 AOV, is it better or worse than 2.3 at 217? And it's worse, right? So average order value, we can just say, right, it's $5 per user versus $4.86. Much simpler to have value conversations, and the two things moving in separate directions no longer causes confusion. So this is the core that we recommend starting with, and conversation we have with all of our clients, because it's the most underutilized metric in all of e-commerce, but possibly the most valuable. All right. So data structures. The majority of where we'll spend time will be on sort of understanding performance, right, and forming insights and strategy, but we'll cover this as some background. So what we recommend is really build for leaders first and then add depth, right? So if we jump to the next, I'll take you through what that looks like and what we sort of look at for clients. And this is familiar territory. I'm not going to go through this one by one, right? But what we say is prioritize your aggregate tags over behaviors, right? The contextual stuff. So everything that you see in sort of product category, cart and checkout, that's where everyone spends their time, right? Add to cart numbers, page views, all of that stuff. The most valuable thing you can give a strategy team is context, right? So if I'm talking to a marketing team and I can say to them, look, the price elasticity for this product range is no more than X, right? It doesn't make sense trying to send traffic to anything above that price point because it just doesn't convert, right? That's now a much more strategic conversation than, hey, we get 5% increase in add to cart if we do this thing, right? So it's focusing on the things that matter, the things you can actually move the needle and strategize with, over the behavioral stuff that is sort of tweaking the experience and changing things. Not unimportant, it's not unimportant, but it's definitely not the thing you prioritize. So yeah, there we go. We jump through, Ben. So now this is the juicy stuff, forming insights and strategy, right? Now, Before you optimize any website, you need to understand how revenue is flowing through that experience at the moment, right? So this is mapping the territory, understanding how much you can rely on your data, and getting an overview of how things perform. So this will give you a sneak peek of like how we sort of look at performance. So the figures on the left, average revenue per user, that's for a 13-month period, the amount of revenue there and the number of users driving it, right? So that's the basic formula. Now, when we're looking at sort of users being the blue bars and in the middle chart there, users and revenue, users being the blue bar and the line being revenue, trying to understand and make sense of, well, is this getting better or worse? When we trend average revenue per user, as we can see on the right, we can see, look, we've possibly had some growth in channels that aren't necessarily producing the same yield, right? So in real terms now, with average revenue per user, instead of user conversion rate and average order value, we can say, hey, look, this time last year, we were making $7 million for every million users coming through the door. This year, it's only 6, right? And in real terms, dollar values, we can start to understand how we're performing and how the funnel is doing. Okay, let's jump forward. So now we're starting to look at examining channels, right? And understanding if you're going to move the needle and you're trying to optimize an experience, you can't do that completely detached from the marketing efforts, right? If you're saying to me, look, our conversion rate's going down, I'm going to say to you, which channels are you growing, right? And are they efficient? Because no conversion team can do magic, right? If the traffic is not meeting a certain standard, or we're now diluting the quality of traffic that's coming in, it's going to be reflected in the funnel, right? So this is where we start to look at things. And the table on the right gives you some insight into now where average revenue per user starts to get useful. So it's looking at, so paid social in this instance, right? We're seeing $1.10 average revenue per user compared to paid search, which is $16.80 average revenue per user. Now, again, for every million users going through those experiences, that's a difference of $15 million, right? It's not an insignificant sum. So this is where it starts to help shape an understanding the relative value of experiences throughout the site, and very quickly making decisions on where you allocate resources. So the other point here is unassigned, and this is where I will constantly bash GA. With all of Google's knowledge around traffic sources and how things are performing, their analytics tool doesn't actually do that for you, right? You have to then tell Google what every channel is that comes to you, and if you don't, they just lump it into unassigned. And that can end up being anything between 10 and 30% of your ad spend coming back as unassigned, right? Not always ad spend, but a lot of it will be. So again, free tools, they save you money in some areas and cost you a lot in others. Right, let's jump. So again, we're looking at, now we've looked at the overall performance for the year, we're looking at how does that trend, right? So we can see the light blue at the top, unassigned, in terms of traffic volumes, 15 to 20%. In terms of revenue impact, we're at 25 to 30% of revenue trending, and more of it seemingly becoming unassigned, right? So this makes it really difficult to make decisions based on channels and understanding how you're shaping the site when so much of your revenue can't be attributed, right? What do we do more of? There's a 1 in 3 chance that you're going to be wrong. So this is why it's really important to look at this stuff and assess the tools, but it also forms a foundation of how we move forward. And then if we jump, so device strategies, and we'll tie these together in a moment, but device strategies, a lot of e-commerce sort of providers are really confused about, should we be mobile first? Should we be desktop first? And I would say prioritize revenue over traffic, right? Because looking at this is all dummy data, and we've fabricated this data set around scenarios that we've seen, but looking at this, right, a lot of shops or a lot of e-commerce providers or e-commerce stores, retailers would be tempted to go and say, well, look, we need to prioritize the mobile experience because we're 80-20 split in that direction. Reality is it's the other way around for your revenue, right? So it's from a strategy point of view, who do you decide to prioritize? Do you try and go after an increase and make the mobile experience better? Or do you try and prioritize the desktop experience and make sure that they're happy, right? Because a 10% increase for that audience is 5 million, right? 6 million. It's a big difference of who you go after, right? But these are the things that you need to be considering when you're forming strategies around how you do CRO and optimize your traffic, especially when it comes to spend and allocating, right? Desktop very often is something you can upweight in your campaigns and see immediate returns because the conversion is so much better. And in this instance, it's a difference of $2 for mobile traffic and $36 for desktop. A no-brainer, as they say. So let's jump forward. Right, and I mentioned we're going to start connecting these things, is now starting to look at users and revenue and that contrast and how that's happening for desktop and mobile. Tablet is never, I mean, it's gone, right? It's still great sales for Apple, according to their reports, but it's gone from our traffic, right? We're not seeing anyone spending there. But key differences here, if we're looking at this example, paid search or paid social in this instance, sorry, 2.16 million users coming in on mobile, and it's less than, or just over 500,000 in revenue, right? That line across the top. Now, by contrast, paid search on desktop, on that left for users is 0.3, so 300,000 users. And if I look at the revenue, it's nearly 15 million in revenue, right? So that's a really, really efficient path for people to be coming in. Can we upweight that? Can we use this data to sort of redistribute spend or scale value, right? These aren't standard reports. You've got to work for this. This certainly doesn't come out of GA, but digging into your data and starting to make connections around pathing and the value of paths is absolutely where we start. And then we'll go one further and show you what this looks like. So now we're going to group these together and add landing pages, right? And now we're at near campaign level views on how things are performing. So on the left, we'll see, the left column is now grouping the device and channel together. And now across the top, we're looking at the landing pages that we're sending people into based on those devices and channels, right? And starting to look at where we're seeing the footfall and where we're seeing the value, right? Is there a difference in there that we can meaningfully shift towards and start seeing better returns just by shaping what's coming into the funnel, rather than immediately starting with, hey, this button color is red and it shouldn't be. You're much more likely to see big returns working this way and looking for big strategic shifts, rather than sort of picking up little UX flaws and friction points within your journeys. So let's go forward. Right, and now tying this together slightly further is now looking at, well, how do your product lines perform, right? In terms of visibility, revenue, conversion. So product category 1 in this instance, $8.70, right? Compared to the next best is $3.96 and at very worst, 70 cents, right? So in terms of where you're directing traffic as the first experience coming in, again, all of these things can shape how the funnel performs just based on how you orchestrate the traffic coming into it, right? So the more you know about how it performs, what things are appealing, what's got the highest conversion rates, the better you can shape the traffic. It's not always about changing the site. It's the two things together, right? It's shaping the traffic towards the things that you know perform so that you're going to get those conversion outcomes, right? It's a difference of, in this instance, 2 to 12x, right? For that product category 1. Is there more that can be done to strategize that? And this is starting to look at now, can we shape the site around this as well as the traffic? And then going one further, now we're going to look at behaviors, right, specifically. So here we're looking at what are the last touch shopping experiences by the number of items that people are viewing in a session, right? So looking at 0 items, 1 item, 2 to 3 items, and 4+, right? We can see on the chart there. And 4+, smallest audience, largest value in terms of revenue coming from those sessions, right? So of all the sessions where people buy, the majority of them are looking at 4+ products before they do, right? So there's always a lot of tension in e-commerce around, look, we need to make the add to cart button the most prominent thing, and all of these concerns. And we say lean into your data, right? Because it very much depends on what your product is. And if people are expecting to have a deterministic purchase, I need Post-its, you've got Post-its, I'll buy Post-its, right? Or if it's something where it's like, I'm not sure what you've got, I need to have a look around, how do I do this? like what experience are you prioritizing, right? And so these kind of views allow us to then start seeing, again, relative differences, right? And we can see the difference here in the cohorts on the table on the right. User conversion rate increases linearly with the number of products viewed. And I'm sure if we extended beyond 4+ products, it will continue to climb higher as the audience gets smaller. AOV is consistent across the board, but the difference in conversion rate, look what it does to average revenue per user, right? People that are viewing 4+ items, $43. So cause and effect and all the rest of it. And everyone says, look, you know, these people might be the ones that are most invested in your products and what have you. That's great, you know, but at the same time, they are there and they are spending. Are we prioritizing them? Or are we prioritizing the one item view where we're trying to get everybody through the funnel, right? It's having a clear strategy based on your data. What do we do at this point, and moving with it.
I'll jump in just quickly here and touch on a point that I made at the start. So we had a huge amount of success last year, and that stemmed from two functions. Obviously, one was the approach. We haven't reinvented the wheel, but we've certainly made that wheel move a lot faster. We've understood that moving from AOV down to ARPU, we've understood that getting a user, in many cases, to the correct amount of PDPs to increase that ARPU is what's driving volume, what's actually increasing the bottom line. But what we're looking at and what we're seeing is many developers, they're fantastic at making a beautiful design, it's on trend, but are they building it to be on trend, or are they building it around that highest value customer? Are they building it around that experience to get them onto more product display pages or whatever it may be? And that is why our replatforming, so that's part of what we do is conversion rate optimization. The other side is replatforming, going from custom, Shopify, BigCommerce, Magento, Adobe Commerce Cloud. We cover all of this, but we start from the ground level. What experiences do we need to change? What data do we already have so we can build that around and roll out that red carpet for the highest value customer? So this is one of the things we try and identify first. Who did your devs originally actually build this for? Did they build it to look pretty or to increase volume? Back over to you, Kurt.
Cheers, Ben. So that's an overview of, and we're scratching the surface here, right? But again, and if you're going to start looking at this, I encourage you to look at the trends, because there are times where these behaviors will change, right? You might have seasonal periods where someone is very much more deterministic, and they just want to, you know, they know what they want to buy, or they've built the basket a while ago and they're just coming back now to check out, especially if you've got pre-order products and things like that, right? So it's being aware of any seasonality in this and shaping the site. Like, we're merchandising, it's not much different to retail, right? We get the store ready for the footfall that we know is coming. So this is about preparing and understanding how that works, and people's shopping habits and how they change over time. So as an overview, I mean, this is where we start. It's hopefully a useful introduction, and shows you some of behind the scenes of what it looks like when we're actually using data to start making strategic decisions, and not just, you know, button color testing and things like that. We do some of that, not colors. It doesn't really do anything, but like, we do some small tests, and we do other things where it's like the data says, look, this site needs an overhaul, right? The experience needs to massively change in order to cater for the kind of behaviors that your shoppers are exhibiting. So it's, as a foundation, this is really useful, but again, we are scratching the surface here. There's so much more to look at, but you've got to have an understanding of what you're looking at and what GA is doing for you, if you are using GA, and I know most of you are. So this is sort of looking under the hood and seeing what comes out the other side. So yeah, let's jump. There we go. Quick recap, and we'll jump through the key points. So again, average revenue per user shapes how quickly you can understand and act, right? And getting your teams to align on value is hugely valuable to an organization. If you're not using it, please start bringing that in and help people to understand that it's not just total revenue divided by total users. Like, you can use it to separate what's going on with conversion rate and AOV. Hugely useful. Your data structures, again, prioritize your leadership first, and tracking the things that you can move the needle on very quickly, tracking by price points, etc. And again, when you've got data aligned, you can move teams together, right? When everyone's moving towards the same evidence and got the same view of value, things move quickly. And please, 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 if you're doing anything more than 10 million a year, please stop using Google Analytics and put your hand in your pocket and pay for a tool that isn't going to cost you so much. Wow, over to you, Ben.
I need to unmute myself. Thanks for that, Kurt. So what we'd like to offer anyone who's given us that time today to come here and listen, and hopefully it's been helpful to you all, is to offer you an audit which deep dives with your data and showcases what your average revenue per user is. It breaks down which tagging you don't have in place that you maybe should have in place, and highlighting key metrics such as who was your site actually built for? Was it built for people or users that are looking at one product display page for 2 to 3 or 4 plus? And we can highlight this and actually identify together which approach and where that red carpet needs to be spread out for those high value customers. This typically takes around 3 days for us to complete, 3 working days, that is. And it would be a pleasure for us to do it. It would be Kurt and myself that will be working with you on these audits. And anyone who would like to have this completed, we would need access to either BigQuery or Google Analytics. And you can get back to us on the follow-up email, which is going to come through today or tomorrow, including the run through and recording of this very webinar. Okay, I will leave it there. Hopefully this has been helpful for you all. Again, I'm Ben. This has been Kurt. We hope you enjoyed the webinar covering CRO as it should be, not UX. This is true CRO using hard data. And we're hoping to hear from you very soon. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.